Hey superstars, Kirsten Swales. Today I feel like I haven't spoken to you in a while, so I wanted to make a video. And I'm just going to finish off my little gluten series on gluten testing. Testing that you can do to find out if you are allergic to gluten, which is aka celiac disease. Because it's good to know, because then you know if you have to be really good or if you can be like a little bit naughty or what's going on. Because ignorance can be bliss, but it can also not. Because if you're just going, oh, whatever, and you're eating the gluten and you're damaging your intestines, not such a good idea. So let's talk about testing for gluten allergy or celiac disease. Testing for celiac disease is what I want to talk about. So the current gold standard is this thing called a small bowel biopsy. So that means that they go in and they cut a little bit out of your small intestine, which is where we have these things called the villi, and then on the villi we have the microvilli. So if you imagine your small intestine is like this tube, and then in the tube there's these little finger-like things called the villi, and then on the villi you've got microvilli. So if you imagine like seaweed in the ocean, and then the little fish are swimming through, this is like the food. So then these little seaweed type things, they absorb the nutrients. No seaweed or no villi, then the fish just swim all the way through, and that's your nutrients. So if you damage your villi, you can end up malnourished, even if you've got the best diet in the whole wide world. So it's really important to know. So in the small bowel biopsy, they're going to cut this little piece off, send it to the lab, and then they look through the little microscope and they see how much damage has been done or not. So that's what they do there. And then there's also another test, which is a blood test looking for antibodies, and they're looking for your trans tissue glutamase. And so if you don't have these antibodies, then they say that your body's not fighting the gluten. So it's not like an immune allergic response. But for both of these tests to be accurate, you need to have done the gluten challenge. And the gluten challenge is eating the equivalent of 2 to 4 slices of bread every day for 6 weeks. And then you do the test to see what the damage is. Because even if you are celiac and even if you are allergic to gluten, but if you've been having gluten-free foods and you haven't really had gluten in months, there's not going to be that damage to your intestine. So it's going to be an inaccurate reading. And it's really unfortunate because I get these clients that come to me and they say, oh, no, I'm not celiac, I've had the test. And we go through it, it's like, oh, what was the test that you did? Did you do the gluten challenge? What's the gluten challenge? No, I didn't do that, my doctor didn't tell me to do that. So I reckon there's a whole bunch of people running around that have been told they don't have celiac disease when they actually might. So instead of those two, because even if you're not allergic to gluten, that's going to hurt your intestines. So I'd rather not do that if I didn't have to. So there's something else that you can do. You can get a gene test done. So you can get this done through your doctor, through your GP. Just take a little blood, it's not that bad. And then you're looking for 2 genes. You're looking for a gene called HLA-DQ2 and HLA-DQ8. So if you do have those genes, then there's like a 1 in 30 chance that you may go on to develop celiac disease, depending on your lifestyle and environmental factors. If you're living out in the forests of, I don't know, Russia, and you have all organic food and it's not really stressing your life, then you probably won't develop celiac disease. But if you have these genes and you grew up on pizza and bread and junk food and stress and all that sort of stuff, chances are a bit higher that you might go on to develop celiac disease. This is where we talk about something called epigenetics. If you've not heard of Bruce Lipton, he's amazing. Lipton. And Joe Dispenza, I'm so into Joe Dispenza at the moment. He's a really cool dude. He's got some amazing meditations. But I get off track. So if you don't have those genes, HLA-DQ2 and HLA-DQ8, then you'll never get celiac disease. So that's really nice to know. So if you come back positive for the genes, it's a possibility you might have celiac, and then you can decide whether or not you want to do that gluten challenge and get the trans tissue glutamase or the small bowel biopsy. And then it's up to you. Certain countries do require that diagnosis for different tax payouts or benefits, so it's up to you if you want to go all the way down that route. But first place I'd start is the gene test. It's not going to hurt your digestive system, it's just a little prick with a needle to get the blood out, but otherwise you're done. And then, so if you're allergic to the gluten, so if you've got the celiac disease, then you have to be gluten-free, 100% gluten-free. Because if you're allergic and then you have the gluten, it can cause those little villi to die, and they can stay like that anywhere between 6 and 18 months from one exposure to gluten. That would be so sad. So you're gonna look after your digestive system. So, there we go. Anything else to say about that? The only other people that I would say 100% must be gluten-free are the people with autoimmune conditions, because the chemical structure of the gliadin, which is in the gluten, is very similar in structure to parts of the body, and the body wants to attack the gliadin because it's a foreign invader, but it gets a little bit confused and starts attacking itself. Big connection with autoimmune thyroid conditions, because the gliadin looks so similar to the thyroxine and it just attacks the thyroid. Yeah, a bit sad. There. If you've caught my last few blog posts, there's heaps of ways to avoid the gluten and without missing out. There's so many tasty gluten-free foods out there, and dishes and recipes, and it can be overwhelming if you've never done it before. So I always just say, just start with one. Just start with one gluten-free recipe, and then maybe next week look for another one. Maybe the next week look for another one. And then within a month you've got 4 new recipes and you're laughing. That'll be really good. Any questions? Always just ask. Otherwise, go forth and munch some amazing gluten-free goodness. I'll see you soon. Lots of love from Bali.